Hello, welcome to Relatively Ordinary. This is Betsy.
And I'm Carl.
See, that was wow.
I did that just for
You
you.
did that for my cringe.
Welcome to
Cringe.
Relatively Ordinary. I'm Carl.
I don't think you can help it, so you have to bring it to high levels.
I mean, yeah, I got to inject some life into it.
Okay. Well, yes, we're here. Happy New Year. Pretty exciting. 2026.
2026.
So, how's it been, Carl? How's life?
How's 2026?
Yeah.
It's great. 4 days in, it's magical.
Has it been 4 days already?
I mean, it's the
Is it
fourth.
the fourth?
So, yeah.
Time flies when
Time,
you're
time
just
flies.
vegging and catching up on sleep.
Yes.
So yeah, it's been a fun couple weeks for us. We took a little hiatus with recording because we were traveling. And Carl, do you want to share where we went?
Well, we were in Maui,
Mhm.
which we were in San Diego for a couple days visiting my sister, which was really nice. See my nephew, my sister's partner. That was great. But Maui is incredible.
It's pretty spectacular.
Pretty spectacular.
A bucket list trip and one that I kind of pushed for, and I think everyone enjoyed it. So
yeah. we had amazing weather.
yeah,
you pointed out it's raining right now.
Yeah. Which is
We
a bummer for anyone vacationing there now.
Yeah, we had amazing weather, just magical. Everywhere you went, something magical. We swam with sea turtles and hiked into the crater of a volcano and hiked into tropical rainforest and waterfalls and
Such a cool
saw whales. I mean,
such a cool experience.
incredible.
Yes, one of my favorite trips, and I think it was really cool to experience with the family. So I feel extremely lucky that we had that opportunity, and it was a good reset. It was a good way to sort of close out what was a very difficult year.
Yeah.
So
2025 was tumultuous.
Yeah.
But we ended on a high note.
A really high note, yeah.
It's great to be there with my parents and our kids and each other. And
we rung in the New Year sitting on the tarmac. So that was cool. Yeah. It's always cheapest to fly on the holiday, I've learned, or like the day preceding the holiday. Yeah. So cool. All right. So you want to kick us off with a little question for me?
So I have our quick bite question, and I actually prepared this time.
Wow. I saw that. I see you have notes.
I have notes.
A lot of notes for a quick bite.
So this is related to there was an article on NPR recently, and it was about the 5 questions that people should ask their partner before deciding to get married.
Oh, too late.
So
you probably already know the answers, though.
First of all, well, no, I want you to come up with a question that you think should be on this list. So what would be your advice be to somebody out there today? What's a question that you should ask?
Okay. Before you get married?
Before you get married.
Okay. Do you want to get married?
To get married to this person.
Do you want to be married?
I mean, that's kind of...
I think you need to ask I have multiple ideas. Can I share them, or just one question?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Do they want to have children?
Mm-hmm.
What are their financial plans and goals? Getting a sense of where their career and life might take them as far as where they live and all that. Their preferred style of communication, especially if they're really upset.
That's 4.
That's 4 of the 5 questions?
Well, don't jump ahead. No, first of all, don't presume that you're getting this all right.
Amazing. I got them all right.
But that's 4. There's 5, so give me one more.
One more. Okay. Do you like to cook? And if not, can you clean up?
Okay.
Boom.
Cool. Well, that's actually a great list.
Oh, thank you.
And what's interesting is you actually hit on a lot of the themes from this article. So the person they interviewed her name is Carol Brees, and she's a professor of marriage and family communication.
Okay.
And
so she knows her stuff.
She allegedly knows her stuff. And here's her top 5 questions.
Gotcha. Go for it.
So number 1, is there anything that you are not willing to give up once we're married?
I know what yours is. Winter sports.
Number 2, can you handle me doing things without you?
Oh, that's a good question.
It is
definitely yes for us. I mean, sometimes we prefer to do it without you.
Yes. Number 3, when conflict arose, did your family use the silent treatment, calmly discuss disagreements, or slam doors?
Yeah. I think that first part is a red flag. You can deal with the slam doors, but
Mm.
ooh, the silent treatment, oh, red flag.
Yeah, you know what I like though is I like a nice blend of the silent treatment and slamming doors. Just be unpredictable and potentially erupt.
Okay.
Keep them
That
on their
sounds great.
toes.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Number 4 is what is the most you'd be willing to spend on a lamp, a pair of shoes, or a pair of jeans?
Interesting. Yeah, you get a sense of how their finances are.
And number 5, if we have children, are you willing to change diapers at 3 a.m. and miss an important meeting if our kid is sick?
That's good. The answer should be yes. If you want to have kids, the 2 following questions have to be yes.
Well, it could be, but I think it actually I think what's interesting about your questions, these are much more sort of
Yeah, specific.
specific things, but they are all kind of evocative of the theme of your questions. You know, you think about that, you know, are you willing to miss an important meeting if our kid is sick? It's really like, are we as a couple going to say that your career is more important than mine or my career is more important than yours? Or are we going to sort of each take our own, you know,
Yeah,
trade-offs in that
the compromise.
pursuit? Yeah.
No, that's important. I would say, how sick are they?
Yeah. Send them to school, put a mask
If
on
they're
them,
not
pump them
vomiting
from an ibuprofen, send
and
them to
their
school.
fever ain't over 102.
Yeah.
Okay, can I answer question 3 real quick on
Yeah.
that? Because I find that funny. A lamp, what was the middle
So
thing?
that's number 4.
Uh, the
So what is
cost.
the most you'd be willing to spend on a lamp, a pair of shoes, or a pair of jeans?
Okay, so for a lamp, I would pay nothing. I want to say all the lamps in our house were hand-me-downs. Maybe some from Goodwill.
Goodwill has some
I'm
great
willing.
lamps.
I'll pay for a decent light bulb, but I'm not.
Unless it's
Shoes.
like the leg lamp from A Christmas Story.
Oh,
I'd pay for
dude,
that.
I'd pay a lot of money
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a major award.
Major
So,
award.
I'd probably spend the most on the shoes, but no more than $100. And
Timing and footwear.
I've got like 5 pairs of really nice shoes.
Yeah, unless you count ski boots as shoes.
Oh, yeah, no, then that's hundreds, but that's a one, hopefully, and done for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then the jeans, I don't know. Jeans that are anywhere over $50 to $100 are just obscene in my mind. I can't even handle it. So, does that make you feel comfortable?
Yeah. But the better question is like how much you willing to spend on a vacation or a car.
Oh, yeah.
Or,
The car, not so much. The
a
vacation,
bathroom
all in.
remodel.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Those
Yeah.
are the big. Yeah. Let's not ask that question.
Yeah.
We might get divorced. All right. Well, we should segue into
Away.
the main topic. So this kind of was inspired by our recent adventures when we were traveling.
Nice.
And it's interesting because this trip was really important, I think, for many reasons. We did have a tough year, and it was a great way to sort of celebrate some big successes for your family specifically, but also our kids are at a time in their lives and their age where they can travel with more ease and they're very impressionable to some of these great opportunities. And so I like to kind of cultivate that in them. And, when we have the means, taking advantage of it. And so I'm glad that we were able to pull all that off and had a wonderful time. But for me personally, I love travel for, just the exploration, the opportunity to sort of decompress and, sort of connect with maybe who I am more foundationally, getting out of the rat race of the day-to-day chaos, and also like have an opportunity to reflect and really get to, see other areas of the world and communities. And one of my favorite quotes, and I think you're familiar with this, is by Mark Twain. He famously wrote, "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness," which I think is absolutely true. And at its core, travel asks us to step outside of what is familiar. Whether it's local, you're going to a neighbor's house you've never been to, right? Super local, or, traveling to an exotic place that you may not have known much about beforehand. And the language is different, the culture is different, the food is different, the system is different. So our routines, our assumptions, and our comfort zones, we're stepping outside of that. and we encounter people and ways of life that may challenge how we see the world. In today's social and political climate, where division often feels amplified and understanding across differences can feel harder to reach, travel may offer a powerful counterbalance. So that's another reason why I think it's so important to travel, not just to take a vacation, but that's a big part of it. Before we, I'm not going to start at the national or community level. I really want to start on the individual level, sort of like set the stage and discuss this topic. So can you think of a time when you traveled that it really opened you up? You were stepping outside of your comfort zone, as I mentioned, and really had this aha moment. And it, maybe left you really appreciating differences in people, new cultures. And, how did that experience change you?
So I can think of two
Great.
that I'll
Please
cover. So
elaborate.
the first one I think about when I think I was 15. I went to France and stayed with a family that my father had met when he was traveling in France, but I didn't know them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really. Their son had come and stayed with us, so I knew him, but I didn't know the family, and they didn't really know me, and they didn't really know my dad all that well either.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sort of an exchange student.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there were a couple older brothers in the house who spoke pretty good English. The younger son spoke pretty good English. The father spoke pretty good English. The mother barely spoke any English at all. And I'd studied French in school, but I was, first of all, extremely self conscious about speaking. French is like, it's not an easy language to learn, I think. And it's, there's a lot of structure in it. Whereas I think, sometimes Spanish maybe is a little more fluid in other languages, and English is just all over the place. So I think English is probably hard to learn too, but it's, you can kind of, there's so many different words and ways of expressing yourself. Anyway, I wasn't that good at it, and I couldn't get the words out. So I had a really hard time. It was very frustrating for me to try to like communicate my needs. I think the father of the family was kind of frustrated with me that I wasn't trying to speak French, and I was like trying, but I wasn't, you know,
Mm-hmm.
really putting myself out there. But I had a lot of cool social interactions with kids around my age as I kind of was hanging out with the boys in this family. And I just remember, going to, I played, some pickup soccer, and I was out like mountain biking and just doing things with these kids. And there was like a big language barrier, but also just, you know, yeah, I mean, you don't need to really speak French to like play soccer or like ride bikes or play video games or whatever. So it was a ton of fun. And it sort of, when you spend time with age peers in another place, and there's a lot of cultural similarities and a lot of differences, but it sort of reminds you that, yeah, we're all human, and like there's, even though this is France and I live in the United States and we speak different languages and we have, different hobbies and different clothing styles and stuff like that, the same kind of problems and interests
Yeah.
and
So you saw some commonalities, but you
yeah,
had to be vulnerable because you didn't speak their language.
yeah,
So you sort of had to put yourself out there to,
yeah,
I don't know, acclimate or get into the routine a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it is, it's very, can be very lonely when you
Yeah.
are, you feel that kind of social isolation from not understanding the language and not being able to like communicate in a full way. But it also, I think it also strengthens you to be able to say like, yeah, I mean, I can figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You said there were two
Yeah, and I
experiences.
mean the other one was just when the time we spent in Belize, and
Oh, yeah.
we were in Belize for most of a summer.
Uh-huh.
And Belize is such a wild and interesting place. First of all, the people, the mix of, the Mayans,
Yeah.
I think that was actually probably one of the biggest things is for me was when I thought of when I always heard about the Mayans, it was always these ancient people and these ancient ruins, and Mayan civilization disappeared.
Mhm.
There are
Yeah. They
millions of
didn't
Mayan
disappear,
people,
yeah.
right? Like they're all over the place, and their civilization didn't really disappear. It just got absorbed into other civilizations, with the arrival of Western influence,
Yeah.
obviously.
A little bit of a melting pot there because it was the Garifuna.
Yeah, and then there is the Garifuna who are from Africa,
Mhm.
basically people that were brought over in the slave trade.
People from Honduras, Guatemala,
Yeah,
Mexico,
there is
Mormons.
not Mormons, but I mean there's Mormons everywhere, but the
Yeah.
Mennonites, right?
Mennonites,
Yeah,
that's right.
there were Mennonites that had really beautiful farms and great produce, and they ride horses and don't use electricity, and it's just a
Yeah.
very interesting place. And then also, you know I mean, drug smugglers and pirates and hippies, and just a real wild mix of people.
Unique mix. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. To take some acclimation. So, do you think that has influenced the way you approach everyday life and your interactions with others and acceptance of others?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, that's cool. I have gotten to do quite a bit of traveling in my lifetime. And you're right, when there is the language barrier, you just feel this, I can't describe it any other way than this vulnerability. And you're just so appreciative when people are willing to be patient to help you, find a bathroom, buy a bus ticket,
Yeah,
or are willing to try their hand at English because they're so excited that there's a tourist in their community. Another thing that I've really appreciated about, traveling, and one I say this is sort of my, you know, if you probably have had this experience at work, like share something unique about you that someone might not know. I've been to 5 out of 6 continents, which I think is pretty cool. Not been to Antarctica. And I don't know if it's on my bucket list, but maybe I'll get there one day. But I think that what I have really appreciated is when you open yourself up to opportunities to step into someone else's world. Cause I don't like to travel to a place where it's very Americanized, right? Like, I'm not going to visit the US Embassy unless I really have to. I'm not going to eat at McDonald's. There are plenty of them with how globalization works, but I'm really interested in, getting to know some locals who are open to sharing their world to me, going to a mosque, going to a village, trying the food, and really understanding what their day-to-day life is and sort of breaking down barriers and reflecting on how mine is different, and not that it's better, it's
yeah.
just different, right? And I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I'm going to add two things before we move to the next segment. First of all, there's 7 continents, so you've been to 6 of 7.
I've been to 6 of 7.
Yes. Yep.
Oh my god, is it that time of night? Oh
And
my gosh.
oh well, as you were saying it, I was like, why is she saying 6? And I was like, maybe she's not counting Antarctica, but I'm like, no, you've
Yeah.
been in North
No,
America,
North
South
America,
America,
South
Europe,
America, Europe,
Asia,
Asia, and
Africa, Australia.
Australia.
So yeah.
Yep, Africa.
Um,
I'm just, having a moment. I knew there was one left out, but there's
yeah.
7 total.
Well, but the
Oh,
other,
and then there's Central America, but I've been there as well.
yeah, it doesn't count as a
Not, no,
continent.
it's its
I don't
own.
know
It's
who
part of
makes
North
the
America.
rules on the
No,
continents, like Rand McNally. I don't know. Is there like a Dr. Rand McNally who makes these
I
rules?
don't know.
Yeah. Um, but like, how does Australia get to be a continent? You know what I mean? It's just a big island. Anyway,
It's a pretty huge island.
yeah. So, uh, but talking about experiences, and I think this is something that stood out from the luau we went to in Hawaii, is appreciate, like, one thing I've come to appreciate is how, and a lot of times it's cultures, like older cultures, like what we consider to be indigenous, native cultures to
Mhm.
places,
Yeah.
uh, tend to have a more naturalistic type of spirituality or philosophy or origin story.
Mhm.
And that's something that I think you have to really experience and see to understand. And
Like how their culture adopted and developed based on the land
well,
and their environment.
I think it's like if you read it in a book, and you read it in a book like, they were, so and so people worship the god of fish. And you're like, okay, that's cool. You got a god of fish. Okay, great. You know, but when you see where people live and then you see practices or beliefs or, artwork or whatever that carries that tradition today, you start to really kind of understand and appreciate like these are people who cannot unwind the natural world from the human world. And I think actually in our society, our civilization, we have done that too much. We've disconnected from the natural world. And I think it's more than just reading about it. You have to sort of see it and
Yeah.
talk to people and live it a little bit.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know, embrace better understanding, deeper understanding of it.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. So on a community level, we were recently asked if we could do this, but the whole idea of, and you mentioned it, so we've kind of talked about this, but the study abroad programs, service trips, culture immersion opportunities, how do you think they contribute to greater empathy and understanding, especially if we think about our local populations? And it doesn't need to be a service trip where you're, traveling to Southeast Asia, but you're doing something within your local community. How do you think that impacts empathy? And, do you think there's value in there almost being like a requirement to graduate high school doing something related to that? Or
I think one of the very underrated things about the our grandparents' generation, the World War II generation, is so many, and it was mostly men, but it wasn't all men. There was women too. So many men and women had experiences traveling to their countries and seeing, some of it was seeing the devastation and horrors of war,
yeah.
but also some of it was, you know, just mundanity, right? Or some of it was sort of actual kind of cultural exchange. I mean, one cool thing, my grandfather, my mom's dad played in a baseball game. I want to say it was, I I think it was somewhere in Europe. I think it might have been in Turkey.
Interesting.
But he played in a baseball game in front of people who had never seen baseball before. So it was a
Oh,
bunch of,
fun.
American sailors, one ship playing against another ship, and just putting on a demonstration for these people that had never seen baseball and had no concept of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that really stayed with him. And he had the, probably, fortune is the right word, of really, like, he was very young, so he got involved at the tail end of the war, never saw, some of the more horrific direct, combat or the aftermath of combat, like I think your grandfather had seen and his brothers had seen, his older brothers. But, you still have those experiences of seeing, like, even if you're going into a village that was just shelled and now you're going in there and seeing people, cleaning up afterwards. And you understand at a human level the impact and the cost of that. And so there was a lot of people who had this exposure to a wider worldview. And then they came back not only with a, like, let's never freaking do that again,
Yeah.
but also with a, I've seen what people are like in Ireland, the UK, Germany, France, Belgium, Turkey, Egypt, Algeria, wherever, Japan, and they're kind of just like us. I mean, some things they do are different. Like, they have some different beliefs, like some things I don't understand, but, you know,
Yeah.
we all have to eat, sleep, poop, put a roof over our heads, wear clothes, like, so I think that that experience is just so valuable. And, I think you can do things. I think one of the mistakes, is to think that that's only a thing for people of privilege, right? Like, I think we should find ways to create opportunities for people to travel and learn from that experience as part of educational opportunities and as part of, service learning. And I
Yeah.
mean, imagine, you know, if instead of focusing on building up military forces to go kidnap the Venezuelan president, we were, using troops, using resources to help build bridges or, share information or, provide food or medical care or whatever. Not only do those things as a country make us stronger because we're building allies and we're turning someone who might want to bomb us in the future into someone who would protect us, but we're also giving you know, our young people a nuanced view of the world they would not get elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think you mentioned a lot of good things about traveling further, right? A little more of a global perspective. But I think a lot of that can be gained locally. Within a couple hours drive, there are indigenous, you know, populations, and that could be a great opportunity to really see what's going on in their world and understand better, and possibly opportunities for service learning. And, I think it's simply by extending your hand to greet someone and get to know them and ask them a little bit more about themselves and their experiences. And I don't think you need to necessarily travel far and wide to do that.
Yeah.
So very cool. Well, that's a good segue. You always sort of get into politics some way or another, but let's talk about it on a national level. So, in a time of increasing political polarization and us versus them thinking, how might travel, both domestic and international, help soften rigid viewpoints or humanize groups? And, if we think about trying to break down stereotypes, I think, at least from a national political viewpoint, it's definitely, how can we prioritize supporting our people, or even more so like our growth, and, keeping us strong and number one and on top. And I don't think that's always necessary. When you think about, we share the earth, right? And there are a variety of civilizations that are trying to work together. Like, how can we embrace opportunities for travel to really understand? I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I think you brought up just traveling, you know, locally. And I think we've talked about it. I forget what our topic was, but there was a previous episode we talked about even the value of traveling to like the next state or
Yeah.
within your state. And I think I've had some really great experiences traveling in the country to places where, there might be considered to be some friction
Yeah.
from, I've lived in a bunch of different states, but they've all been blue states
Yeah.
and they've all been, coastal.
Yeah.
And I, I have, well, I'll admit it. Like I joke around about how I don't like going to Florida because it's my least favorite third world country. But, I mean, Florida's great. And I've been to Florida and I've had some really great experiences. I've been, like when I was in Texas, like everyone in Texas is so nice,
Yeah.
and Texas I look at and it's like, there's some crazy shit on, like I saw billboards in Texas for people running for public office, like with bandoliers and rifles in their hands. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this place? But people are really nice. And I think there's also some, I think sometimes I get when I see, we live in a place where there's just trees and fresh water and ocean and like beautiful things all around. And so it's perplexing to me how people could be, you know, so callous about strip mining and drilling for oil and polluting streams and all of that. And not that it justifies it, but you go sometimes, like there's expanses of Texas and the Southwest where you're like, "Oh, yeah, there's nothing here." I mean, it's just like the land is like it's a harsh, unforgiving, and at times kind of ugly environment. And you're like, I can see from the perspective of why someone's just like, I'm going to get what I need out of this earth and, make a life from it. So even just things like that, it puts you in the place where you can see how people come to these conclusions. And I think there's also, I remember talking with someone on an airplane one time about border security. And they were, this was a person from Texas, and they had a ranch that was right on the Mexican border. And they were talking about how, like, you know, I'm scared because people are coming through my property. They're coming over the border. They sneak through the border and they come right through my property. And I have no idea who these people are, what they want. Like, I know the vast majority of them are just like people who are kind of desperate, right?
Mhm.
Like, they're women and children and people who are coming here to like find work and find a better life. Like, I'm not like, I don't hate them, but at the same time, I don't know. Like, I don't know
Mhm.
what they're running from. I don't know, what they're doing. I don't know if they have drugs. I don't know if they're on drugs. I don't know if they have weapons. Like, you know, and so they were talking about how, like, yeah, I'm armed to the teeth. And
Yeah, because it can be disconcerting.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like when you talk to someone about that, it's like, okay, I get it. When you're sitting here in Maine and you're like, people from Guatemala are not taking your jobs. I'm sorry. Like, you people are nuts. Like, you're out of your goddamn minds.
Yeah.
But when you hear a story like that, you're like, yeah, okay. I
Yeah.
mean, I see it. And this wasn't a person who was like, we need to, kill all the brown people or some crazy shit. Like, they were just like, we need something that makes sense.
Yeah, because the way things are, it's not working. Makes me wonder, how would you describe the cultural identity of the United States?
Made up. It's a fascinating thing. I think I've thought about this a lot, actually, in terms of when I grew up. So I was educated in Connecticut, and we would do field trips to like Old Weathersfield and Mystic Seaport and Boston, and so there's a lot of colonial history and a lot of history, and you know like the Charter Oak, where the Constitution copy of the Constitution was hidden from the British when they were ransacking Hartford. Like, there's just a lot of things that are like you can look and see, like, that period of American history where the country was birthed, what
Mhm.
happened here,
Mhm.
in a lot of ways. And so it was just a point of pride, right? Like, there was a lot of pride I had, and they hammered us in that in
Oh,
school, right?
totally. Totally. If
Uh,
you're a New Englander, I think you get extra hammered.
totally.
You get
And
US history in
yeah,
4th grade, 6th grade, 8th
yeah,
grade, 10th grade, 12th
yeah.
grade.
And like our football team is the Patriots, like
Yeah.
Paul Revere's ride and all that stuff. But at some point it dawned on me that I was like, none of my people were here
Mm.
for that. Like,
Mhm.
none, I don't think there's a shred of blood in my veins that comes from anyone who was in the colonies at that time.
Yeah.
And so for me, I kind of grew up with this idea of, yeah, yeah, rah, rah, and I was like, no, I mean, we were in Finland, Ireland, New Brunswick, Turkey, probably some random scatterings, things I don't even know about. But
Mhm.
that's where my people were. My people were not here really till pretty much the 20th century. And so, first of all, there's a lot of this when you wrap your head around that, you wrap your head around the fact that we are a nation of immigrants. Also, a lot of the like, you know, being a true American and all that stuff, it's like, what
What does that
is
mean?
that? Right?
Yeah.
There's no, you know, and so one of the things I think is fascinating about that is people just create whatever dream they want. The American dream is kind of just whatever you think it is,
Mhm.
which is pretty cool.
Mhm.
But it also leads itself for like
A lot of interpretation?
manipulation
Yeah.
and some
Misinterpretation?
yeah, more kind of malignant type of interpretation. And so I think there's what our culture is. I think is ultimately it's rooted in principles of liberal democracy,
Yep.
because that's what founded this country. That is our system of law and the system of ethics. Certainly there's, the Judeo-Christian ethics, but I think there's also more of I think there's still like a native ethic in there as well.
Mhm. Or at least there
Um,
should be.
Well, I think in terms of the
Or everyone's root native culture influencing things
yeah,
and the freedom to do so?
yeah, it's a spirit of connection that this is our land. Like
Mhm.
this is our country, which is like again kind of absurd because you don't have to go very far back in history when it wasn't
Yeah.
the land of any people that looked like us.
No, yeah,
Um, but
exactly.
there's still that sort of, this is our home. And while I certainly am fascinated by some of those places where my ancestors came from, I don't feel like any of them are my home. Like I feel like this is my home.
Yeah, yeah. No, interesting. So a lot of influences create what is our
Yeah.
cultural
I mean,
identity.
I'm sorry, MAGA, but it's a melting pot. It is.
I
It
mean,
is. And that's what makes it great.
yeah, exactly. Well, and it sounds like you don't have to go far then to maybe explore other cultures and open your mind.
Well, I do think that one thing that if everybody was more aware of their own personal history and how they came to be here
Mm-hmm.
and the intricate overlays of immigration and melting pots and cultural mixing, it would give us all a better and deeper understanding of who we are as Americans.
Yeah, and maybe a perspective that was a little more accepting,
Yeah.
right? And that at some point in time, we all arrived in this new world, and thanks to our ancestors, we've had some great opportunities. And so we need to continue those trends if possible. All right. So, what is something you're still chewing on about this topic?
I just want to travel more now.
All right. So, give me your top 5 destinations that are on your list. It doesn't need to be in a certain order, but where would you like to go next?
I really want to. All right, so 5 destinations.
Or whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
I was just trying. I didn't want to narrow it down. Like, give me the exact one.
yeah. Well, I've never been to Africa, so I'd really like to go to
Okay.
Africa. I probably I don't know where in Africa I'd like to
Oh, I've
go.
got some suggestions.
I
I have friends who have been to a few
Yeah.
countries.
Um, I hear Botswana is amazing. Um, South Africa is an interesting place. I think Western Africa, like Ghana, would be really interesting. Egypt would be interesting. So yeah, I don't know. There's probably
I would
5 trips in there.
If I were to go to Africa, I'd want to go to Morocco for sure.
Yeah,
Morocco's on the short
yeah.
list.
There's probably 5 trips there. I'd like to go to Japan.
Okay.
Um, not solely to ski, but to ski.
Skiing on that list. Okay.
Uh-huh. I would like to. Actually, I'm after going to Hawaii, I'm really interested to go other places in Polynesia.
Okay.
I
Like
am,
Bora Bora or something.
yeah, I'm just so fascinated by how the hell people got, like, what on earth compelled people to get in these tiny little boats
Yeah, and travel
and travel
hundreds,
hundreds of
sometimes thousands
miles,
of miles.
yes, to different islands that
And then
may
not
that
even
may
know
not
it.
have been
Yeah,
there.
I mean it's way more ocean
Yeah,
than island,
and
and even the reefs, like they're not sustainable spots for living. So you're
and
really comfortable on a boat.
there had to have been, who knows, hundreds or thousands of people who never got anywhere. They just went out in a direction and were like, we're going to explore, and then
Nothing was there.
nothing,
And did they turn around?
Well, they got eaten by sharks or
Wow.
drowned
There's got to be a book or documentary
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah, it's
That'd be
fascinating.
cool.
It's super fascinating.
Okay.
And then I'd really like to go to uh Acadia,
Oh
like
yeah.
where the Acadians are from, not the national park, but
Okay.
where the Seers,
All right.
came to settle in
That's
North
probably
America.
the easiest of the trips so
Yeah.
far that you've
Yeah.
mentioned.
It's still a 10-hour drive, but
Yeah.
it's definitely
Who said
there.
driving?
Yeah. It's definitely there.
Okay, that was 4.
What was that for?
Yeah. It's okay.
No.
You don't need to have a fifth one on there.
Well, I want to go back to Costa Rica because I love it
Oh,
there.
Costa Rica was amazing. I think there are parts of I'd like to do the Silk Road and
Mm.
see those parts of Asia and through to Europe and understand how trade worked because that's fascinating to me. Also, I think I'd like to go to some place like Nepal. I don't know if I'd want to. India sounds very busy, but I think I could be down for Nepal.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And so, what feels relatively ordinary? That there are, in fact, 7 continents?
Yes. 7 continents. I think it's just an interesting, I think the pace of migration and visiting different places obviously exploded in the 20th century with the advent of air travel, but this is our human history. I mean, it's pretty incredible. You talk about the Silk Road and the flow of ideas and goods and commerce
Yeah, it's like
and
in our
and
blood.
yeah, and also plants and animals and disease and
Yes, all
ideas
the
and
bad things too.
and I mean ideas, right? There was like that joke going around about did you hear about the thing where a bunch of people are getting pissed off because Zoran Mamdani was going to teach Arabic numerals to American school kids?
No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, that's where our numeric system came from.
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes it's like if you don't stop and think about it or you don't study it or pay attention to it, you can, you know, it's very easy in this country to not realize that there are many, many thousands of years of human history and
Mhm.
sophisticated civilization.
Mhm.
It didn't all start in 1776.
Yeah. I would say that there are very few things I would be upset about my children learning. Very, very few. I mean, I don't want them to learn about how to create, weapons of mass destruction at a young age. But I think that's a great
Someone's
example.
got to know how to create bombs.
But I think if, these ideas were presented, like, oh, okay, we're going to be talking about this controversial book, right? Well, it's a discussion, right? We have a discussion where we get to compare and contrast and just learn things. Like, I don't see any harm in teaching anyone anything for the most part. Like I said, there are a few exceptions because I think it does. Gives us an opportunity to break down barriers and think outside the box.
Yeah, the only thing I challenge with that though is that ideas can be dangerous if you don't also teach critical thinking.
Well, I was going to say it needs to be done where you're cultivating critical thinking.
Yes.
And not in a way of like, all right, well, I'm gonna, indoctrinate you to my methodology. No, I think that's what good teaching is. But if you're sharing lessons like, okay, well, here is the history of, how we got to what is it, English language, you know, alphabet, right? And you're talking about the history of it. You need less critical thinking of that. But, if you're thinking about theories and, you're maybe discussing different religions and I don't know, there's definitely a need for that being layered in.
Hmm.
So cool. Anything else you want to contribute?
No, that's all. That's all
All you
for
got.
Sunday night.
Yeah, you're a little fried.
Yep.
Look at.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. This was pretty fun. A good way to discuss travel after our big adventure. And yeah, until next time.
Yeah.
Thank
Happy New
you.
Year.
Happy New Year.